Well, today we had a nice rally in the markets courtesy of Facebook, and that took the S&P closer to the 50-day line. So it bounced off the 200-day line yesterday, and I think this is a logical reaction rally. We'll see how far it carries, but I think that's all going to depend on what the stocks do, obviously, as always. But we'll see what happens tomorrow because we're going to get another gap up opening courtesy of Microsoft, Amazon, and also Intel, which is up about $3 in after hours. I actually shorted Intel in the after hours. It got somewhere north of 57.50 and just looked too juicy to short on a intraday basis, or at least an after hours basis. And it came in, I covered at 55.65. So thank you, drive through. But I mean, the bigger question here is, are we going to get some sort of a big money move in the market? And it's hard to say. I mean, you look at the S&P, we're going to be up tomorrow. Well, let's look at the minis over here, the mini futures, and they're not moving much. So we're sitting here still under the 50-day line. What's really moving is the Nasdaq, or the Nasdaq futures rather. So if we look at the Nasdaq composite, we can see it rallied up to the 10-day and the 20-day line today, and it just came off of midair. But of course, when you're watching these indexes coming down, you want to watch all of them, because sometimes if you have something like the S&P 500 bouncing off the 200-day line or running into the 200-day line, that can just set up the context for the Nasdaq to bounce in midair. And so, it looks like it's in midair, and it is on the chart here because there's no real clear areas of support underneath it, but it bounces on the basis of the S&P 500 bouncing off of its own 200-day line, which is what it did yesterday. So that was pretty easy to see. I was thinking we might see it break. I still think there's a good chance we could see a break. You've tested it once, twice. This is the third one, and we're rallying out of here, and maybe we'll roll over. We'll see how tomorrow goes. That should be interesting to see how these moves pan out, which I'll kind of get to in a second here. But the Nasdaq, if we look at the Nasdaq minis, that's an NQ. Nasdaq minis are up right now. This is what they were up today, including up till 3 p.m. or my time, or 6 p.m. East Coast time. And so right now we're just kind of hanging around. We're still under the 50-day. So you're coming up into the 50-day, kind of a crucial spot, because we'll see whether the Nasdaq is able to clear it, if the S&P is able to clear its own 50-day moving average, and maybe you got some more upside. But again, you're just in this market environment where you're just chopping back and forth, and it's just kind of incoherent, and stocks go this way and they go that way, and there's really nothing setting up in terms of trends. And I think that's kind of the soup you're in right now, and it's probably going to stay that way for at least a little while, it seems. So I'm interested in trying to swing trade it, which isn't always the easiest thing to do. So, but we'll look at some charts here, and I'm using my e-signal today. I'm going to keep an eye on the futures over here. So, but the big mover today was obviously Facebook, and you got this big move, but you notice how it jams right up into the 200-day line. Now it closes just above the line, but it stalls a little bit around the line. Got totally clear of the 50-day line. That's where it found support this morning. So theoretically, you could have bought this thing as a trade at the 50-day line and then just use that as your selling guide, and you would have got a few bucks out of it. Now it's sort of into this underside of this prior base. So look at this. Let's see if I can make this a little easier to see in terms of the entire base. But you can see here, you're into this area underneath this base, this prior base, and it failed on the breakout here. Boom. So it's a late stage base failure, and you get 1, 2, 3 little rallies back above the 50-day line, and the third one fails. Boom, and just blows apart. And of course, there was news on that, so that helped to drive it. Now you're coming back up into this area of overhead price congestion, which is all this here. Does that look pretty congested? It certainly does. And you're stalling here, so this could still turn into a short. I'm not discounting that possibility. So we'll see what happens tomorrow with some of these. And you got the names like Now, ServiceNow came out with earnings, I think, yesterday after the close. I was looking for that. I think I was saying it was Tuesday, but it's really Wednesday. I can never keep them straight. But in any case, what you have is a late stage base here. It fails, so you get the failure on big volume. They're selling it down yesterday and the day before, which would have been Tuesday, and you're seeing a rally now that carries into the 50-day line, and the volume is pretty heavy, so that that makes sense. Nice reversal on earnings. I guess it was a good report. I didn't really look at it because I don't see this as really being viable. It stalled and closed below the 50-day line. So, is this a short? It may be. I'll be watching this tomorrow to see if it does turn into a short. Another one I was messing with today on the short side, and which didn't go anywhere. I ended up covering it, and it was pretty much a wash. Is Splunk, and Splunk also, I think it was rallying on Now's news. So you basically have a late stage little cup with handle. It's failing. The volume picked up pretty good yesterday here, and then you rally into the 50-day line. But you just sat there. You didn't really break. I was looking for a reversal to the downside, and the volume was light, so it's not really doing anything that I would consider powerful to the upside that gets me, all juiced up to get long the thing. I'm watching these rallies for potential shorts. I still think this market has some issues, and you could see more downside. And I tend to think that you're going to wash everybody out by getting the S&P below the 200-day moving average, because this is where all these pundits are saying this is critical support, and this S&P has held the 200-day line for its entire life, and blah blah blah. And if it breaks, that's the end of the world. And that would be a good spot where they just break it hard. Maybe we get a 2,000 point down day in the Dow, and that's a low, and then we start jamming back to the upside, maybe, or we start a big bear market that goes down 70%. I don't know, but we'll see when we get there. But I tend to think, and I'll put the usual disclaimer that I'm not able to predict the future, but it seems to me that we could easily break the 200-day on the S&P if a few things lined up correctly. Now tomorrow, you're going to see Amazon. Right now we're trading. Where are you, Amazon? I've got these things here. Here we go. 1626 in the after hours. So what that basically means is it's going to open up somewhere up here. So that's going to be a breakout. Okay. So watch this tomorrow. If you like to buy breakouts, 1626 would be less than 1.5% above the breakout point, which is let's see here. Let me put up my data window so I can see where the heck I am. Here we go. And the high on that's 1617.54. So you're not even 0.5% above that right now. Maybe just barely, a little bit over 0.5% above that breakout point. So if you like to buy base breakouts, then I suppose you could act on this tomorrow, assuming it opens up at these levels. 1626.35 bid right now, and so that's going to put you somewhere up in here, I think. And you could always use the top of this or the 1600 level as your selling guide. Now, if that fails, then you may have a late stage failed base short sale situation on your hands. And I wouldn't discount that, because we also saw another big stock NASDAQ name, the gnarly Netflix, as I like to call it. It had a nice gap up, almost similar, very similar to Amazon. You may notice if you look at the patterns in terms of the breakout, just barely cleared by a couple, 3%, maybe more. Cleared the prior high of the base, and so that failed, and boom, you're sitting on a late stage failed base situation. And the question everybody asks, well, how do you know when this thing's failing? Well, the first point of failure is the low of the Bible gap up day. So once it goes below that, sometimes I'll be willing to short it, and it goes down and fills the gap. But the next day it stalls at the 10-day line. You can short it there, and it heads lower. Of course, notice how it goes lower. And let's do something that'll make this a little easier to see. Yeah, here we go. And you can see how, I guess you could say you're undercutting this low or something, but to me that's not enough of a significant low to really count as an undercut and rally type move. But you get the nice move. It stalls. It stalled a couple times at the 20-day line this morning, where you could have picked off like 4 or 5 points on it on the short side, and then it kept going, but volume was very light. Okay, so probably tomorrow they're going to take it up to the 10-day line. Let's see, where's it trading right now? Let's take a look. the intraday chart. It's trading at 316.85. So yeah, they're going to take it up closer to the 10-day line. Thank you, Amazon, Intel, and Microsoft. So what you want to be looking at, that's not even up to the 10-day line yet, but it may run out of gas at that point. So that's something to watch possibly for a short. And this is why, Amazon just reported great earnings, and they're going to break out tomorrow. And how do you know it doesn't stall? So watch what happens after the breakout. If it doesn't fail immediately, then do we get a situation where you're not really making any further upside progress? It's stalling, and there's no real impetus in terms of volume coming in to follow through on the big volume breakout, and that may tell you to be on the lookout for some sort of trigger. Break the prior breakout point, break below the prior breakout point. That's what I mean. Break below the 20-day, the 10-day, whatever you want to use as a reference, as a trigger for getting short the stock if it's a possible late-stage failed base. So we'll see what happens. Microsoft's going to gap up as well. So let's take a look at that. Where is it trading right now? We're trading 97.15. So the high here is 97.07. Over here the high is 97.24. So we're trading right at these highs, okay, in the after hours. So does it try to break out and then fail? Maybe. So that's something to watch out for. Now, if you like to buy breakouts and it clears and it holds, then maybe you could try buying it that way. So again, we're looking at names in sort of a bifurcated way, two-sided. Everything is two-sided in this market as far as I'm concerned. What is a short for me one day can easily become a long the next day, sometimes even the same day. Here's Square gapped up this morning. It was good for a little trade on the undercut and rally move. I talked about this in last night's report. And it's stalling, and this afternoon they announced that they're buying some companies, so now we're pushing a little higher, 47.30 by 47.80 in the after hours here. You can see it on my quote screen, but that's going to take you somewhere back to the highs of today. And the other thing you'll notice here is you do have this area of congestion, and most of the thickness is in here above where I'm coloring in. So you could tell I'm the type of person, if you gave me some paper and a box of crayons, I'd have a hell of a good time. That's why I like messing with charts, I guess, and marking them up. That's what makes these videos so much fun, and much more fun, I think, than writing reports where I have to be neat with the charts. I like being sloppy, and I never color in between the lines. That was one of the things when I was in, I think, second grade or something. I got a C or something in art because I didn't color in between the lines. What I used to like to do is I used to like to give all the characters in the coloring book like this strange aura with like yellow crayon, and the teachers couldn't figure out what the hell I was doing, and my parents would come, why is he getting a C or in art? Well, he doesn't color in between the lines, and I guess I still don't color in between the lines, but in any case, if you're just wondering why I get off on this, that's one of the reasons. It's fun. It's fun to make a mess like that, okay? So let's the other one that's going to gap up, and this is one I shorted, is and made a couple bucks on it. Intel, not a huge amount of money. I mean, it's not like I'm going to go buy a new house with it, but they're going to open this turkey up. We're trading 55.80, and that's going to take you somewhere up in here, I guess. And you're going to break out. So another breakout. So if you like to buy breakouts, there you go. Knock yourself out. Because in this market, when you buy breakouts, that's generally what you end up doing because they fail. But I would maybe watch this for a reversal. I don't know. I guess the report was good. But if good news has been bad news in this market, and the market perceives that maybe this is the high point of the cycle, like they did with CAT. CAT also helped with some of the comments they made during their conference call. But if the market perceives that, then you could see these things fail. Just because a company has a great earnings report doesn't mean that it has to continue higher, especially if it's late in the cycle. So, I mean, that's what we saw in March, I think, of 2000. All the companies coming out with earnings, and the market was hot, and everything was hot, and they just rolled everything. So that could happen. Looking at some other names, First Solar came out with earnings after the close. They're doubling, I guess, their capacity, which I thought was kind of interesting. Let's just do this. And they are trading up at 75.90, so they're going to be somewhere up in here tomorrow morning. not really that impressive. And I don't know if this is going to hold up. Is it a buy? Is it a short? I'd kind of watch this because it could go either way. It could roll. If the market rolls, it could roll. So yeah, you might get a sense I'm kind of leaning towards the short side. Yesterday once the S&P hit the 200 and we saw everything turn, I was leaning towards the long side. So I'm willing to go in either direction depending on what these things want to do. And sometimes they will go higher. Sometimes they become longs on that basis, and sometimes they become shorts. Here's Palo Alto Networks. That's what I call it. Again, holds the 20-day line and rallies, but it ain't going anywhere. There's no big volume. Volume is minimal, and there ain't too much going on here. Twitter also was rallying on Facebook's news, and like I said last night, it might create a shorting opportunity. It got close to the 50-day line, and it reversed, closed near the lows of the day. That was a short. Did anybody see it? Probably not. Well, I'm sure a few of you did, but did you play it? I know I didn't short that today. That wasn't one. And Fortinet has been broken the 20-day line here, and it makes you wonder whether it's a late-stage failure. Earnings come out next Thursday, I think it is, but you stalled out at the 20-day line today. You can see that. And these are some of the names I was watching today. FireEye is another one. I didn't cover it in the report, or I did cover it in the report, but didn't have much to say. It's floundering along the 20-day line. Maybe it's going to fail, but we'll find out when earnings come out. Weight Watchers, another interesting one. I'm wondering if this one isn't setting up to be shorted, mainly because you have this rally. It carries all the way back up to the highs. Does it remind you of somebody, a stock called Apple, rallying for so long, just day after day after day on no volume, and then all of a sudden, boom, we get hit. A little bit of stalling rally. Now is it going to break? Earnings come out next week, I think on the 1st or 2nd. So we'll see. Other names that I thought were interesting today. Micron. This was actually an undercut and rally yesterday. Undercut this low here, and then you rallied. Now you're pushing up in here. Does that become a short? Low volume rally. Okay, there's another one. So let me go through some more here. CSX, the rails. I talked about NSC in the report last night. It's up at these highs. It's low in its base, so it's not breaking out. But notice how it's running into resistance up here along these highs, this high and this high. And you could have gotten away with a short at the highs if you're watching the 620 chart. But it's a little bit of, neither here nor there. But I guess at 148, it's kind of in an extreme position relative to these areas of overhead resistance. And so you came in and stalled on heavy volume. So it's not clear to me what this thing's going to do. It could roll back in. That's a possibility. But again, you can see how something this morning it pulled back. You could have gone long and then ridden it up to 148 because it did pull back. I think the low was, let me check this real quick. The low today was 142.31, and I saw it hit it early in the morning. I didn't buy it. I probably should have, but I wasn't paying attention to that. I had my eyes focused on other areas. And whoops. And then it rallied all the way up in here. So you could actually play it long and then maybe shorted it if you're watching it both ways. But again, that's how this market is. It's just kind of funky, and things are longs and then they're shorts and then they're longs again. And it's consistent with the pattern you're seeing in the indexes as well, which is just this big choppy consolidation. And the question is whether we're consolidating to move back to the upside or consolidating to bust wide open and start a bear market. Let's see, what else do I want to look at here? Let's pop down here. I thought Sienna, this was a telecom name, was acting pretty well, and then it got hit today. I love this. It looked like garbage here. It was just breaking to the downside on heavy volume, and then it just floated right back up. Still down on the day, but there was some news about them being affected by some of the tariff action. So the other rail, I didn't cover that one when I talked about NSC, is CSX pulling into the 10-day line. The one thing I don't like here is volume picked up, so I'd like to see volume join up at the 10-day. So I don't know, maybe this becomes a short and it's going to fill the gap. That's something that can be looked at both ways as well. So, and a lot of these names are all over the place. I'm trying to think about what I want to look at. Maybe we'll go flip to my long list, and what I'm doing here is I'm sorting it by companies that aren't going to be reporting earnings in the next few days. So the furthest out first, so you can see 726.87. And if let's change to a cleaner view here. Right there we go. Illumina, just kind of retracing yesterday's breakdown. Atlassian looks like garbage. Twitter was a short. Boeing had the pocket pivot and retested the 50-day line, actually the 10-day line this morning, and held. But I don't know whether that's worth looking at. There's Facebook. FLIR Systems holding had a pocket pivot, supporting pocket pivot yesterday. You can see that. Methanex breaking down. US Gypsum hanging tight. Wynn Resorts broke down and doesn't know what it wants to do. Intuitive Surgical, and that's when I talked about in the report. You did get a move up. No volume, though. I mean, the volume did pick up. It's about average, but nothing really to write home. But here's Visa breaking out. You guys like breakouts? There you go. There's one for you. Textron, this is a Bible gap up. It's still holding the lows of the Bible gap up, sitting at the 10-day line. Volume dried up. Not too bad. Let's see. I want to keep an eye on things here. Here we go. CSX, we just looked at that. Interactive Brokers is hanging tight. Netflix, we looked at that. That could be a short tomorrow. Funko, I love this company. I think this may be the only fun stock out there, but I guess that's why they call themselves Funko. But notice how the thing had a nice move off the 10-day line and holding tight over here. So anyways, probably another cold caller bothering me. I don't know if you can hear that in the background. Coupa Software just bounced. And we're getting into yep, that was a cold caller. They don't leave a message. You know how that one goes. And just popping through here. Salesforce back above the 50-day line on light volume. I don't know. Maybe that turns into a short. But, overall, I think you're getting a sense of how I'm looking at this market. And I'm taking a bifurcated approach. I'm willing to go long or short, but it's pretty hectic, and no guarantees you're going to make money. You could end up getting whipped around and losing money. So unless you're really nimble and you're able to implement tight risk control, in other words, quickly understanding when you're wrong or just bailing out and being willing to come back into a trade if it sets up again, sometimes even, a few cents or half a point lower than you shorted or higher than you sold, so that's the way it works. But you can see there's really a lot of broken down patterns. As I flip here, CyberArk, this thing actually made a new high. The FND just blew to pieces. So if you were long this thing, the only place to buy it, I guess, was right at the 50-day line because it got support there and it bounces nicely. So that's, stuff to look at when things look pretty ugly. What's at the 50-day line? And everything else is just going to announce earnings in the next few days. So, that's where we're at. Is it going to be exciting? Are we, is Amazon going to become a bold new leader and just head to 2,000? Somehow I don't think so, but we'll see if I'm right on that. So I'm looking at things, from both sides, using my 620 chart. Another name I shorted today that actually worked a little bit, but not a huge amount. You could scalp it a couple of times. It was PayPal. It kind of failed towards the end of the day and get a little over $1 in it. Nothing you're going to write home about, but there are these situations that pop up, and so I'm always looking at rallies after earnings in stocks that have already busted wide open. And as they come up into an area of resistance, like, for example, PayPal did today, coming up into the 20-day line, I'll get short in there. Now, this is how you play them on a two-sided basis. If the thing goes through the moving average, then you might consider flipping and going long at that point. So for some people, that's not easy to do. You just took a 30 or 40 cent loss on a short position, and now you're going to flip and go long? And a lot of people won't do that psychologically. But I think when you see that, you can do that. And if it doesn't work, then guess what? You can flip and go short again. And I've had situations where that can work both ways. And, at least you're not going to get creamed if you sit there and watch a stock go through the moving average and you're going to sit there and be stubborn. Just back away and come back to it later. So anyways, you guys, that's all I've got for now. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time. Take care.